In general, the historic environment as a proof of our existence in the past is destroyed. More than 20 objects of cultural heritage were damaged in this location alone.
It hurts terribly. I love my city very much. It is really difficult to see all this. For centuries, the Ukrainian people have been forced to resist overt and covert aggression from Russia, to fight for their land and will, for their identity. Recent history is not an exception. Since February 24, 2022, Russia's large-scale armed aggression against Ukraine has been ongoing. The Russians hoped to occupy Kharkiv, thinking that supporters of the Russian world were waiting for them here, but they were mistaken. The heroic resistance of the Ukrainians made it clear to the enemy that the citizens of Kharkiv, as well as the residents of the entire Slobozhanщina, are the supporters of Ukrainian statehood. In order to realize Putin's crazy plan to restore the empire, the Rashists are trying to increase the vulnerability of Ukrainians, make them faceless, deprive them of historical memory, which, by the way, is also preserved in architecture.
It's just terrible that in the 21st century, with such barbaric actions, one state, Russia, decided that it can conduct its policy this way, destroying our historical heritage, destroying our people, their historical memory. In fact, these buildings are the key components of this historic environment. If we lose it, we can actually lose a significant part of our history.
The more than 370-year history of urban planning has left us with many glorious monuments. It is not a coincidence that Kharkiv is in the top 5 cities of Ukraine with the richest historical and architectural heritage. The expedition group, led by the architect-restorer Viktor Dvornikov, took dozens of trips in the Kharkiv region and surveyed hundreds of objects in order to record the loss of cultural heritage, document the extent of the destruction, and created a database with information about the investigated objects.
There's a crack in the beam. These are monolithic beams. This is an achievement for the time when the building was being built. Here, authentic bas reliefs have been preserved under the layers of decorative paint, and their hexagonal shape is an authentic shape characteristic of the period of the beginning of the 20th century. This is such a style modern. And we see even on monolithic beams the same bottoms in the shape of hexagons.
A lot of institutions of science and education in Kharkiv are located in ancient buildings because such institutions were mostly founded in the distant past. Missile attacks by Russian barbarians caused damage to the educational institution. 2 buildings, which housed the faculties of State Biotechnology University, were destroyed. These buildings are included in the Register of Monuments of Cultural Heritage of Ukraine.
We are in the building of State Biotechnology University, 19 Rizdiviana Street. And here we see the place where a Russian missile hit the building at 3 Katsarska Street. As a result, such large-scale destruction occurred. In this building, we can see the collapse of the floors, the roof structure, and the deformation of the walls. In this building, we also see large-scale deformations of all walls, internal partitions. Cracks were found in the ceilings and in the external walls. That is, we are talking about serious progressive cracks and destruction. As a result of Russian aggression against Ukraine, our building was damaged for the first time on April 4, 2022. The second time was on January 16th of this year, 2024. And the biggest damage to our building occurred on January 23rd of this year as a result of the missile strike next to our house. It caused significant damage. I don't know how we will repair all this. The building is an architectural monument. Actually, this whole area is located in the historical part of Kharkiv. As a result of this hit, more than 20 objects of cultural heritage were damaged at this location. This building, for example, was built in the Art Nouveau style. In general, it is unique because it is an industrial and architectural heritage, and quite rare for Kharkiv and Ukraine in general. There are few buildings of this kind. It has value precisely as a historic environment. In general, the very fact of using such missiles for any military purposes in a historical area is contrary to international law because it leads to large-scale destruction. All this area, which is here in a radius of 300 to 400 meters, suffered the same way. The degree of damage is different, but all the roofs definitely need to be replaced. Both the partitions and the ceiling are wooden, and everything is damaged. Everything is falling apart. The windows are the most obvious problem that everyone can see. Inside, all the buildings are now to undergo a global reconstruction. What do we see in the building we are in now? These are wall deformations. They simply cannot be repaired. They must be completely disassembled and then completely reassembled. It means that the problem is very serious. The parquet you have here is in such good condition. You have a lot of work. There could not even be a hint that the military was here. Students studied and teachers worked here. Now the Russian Federation has deprived us of the opportunity to work in our native core. The building of the first real school is now the building of State Biotechnology University. It is an architectural monument of local importance. It was built at the end of the 19th century, and it was one of the largest buildings in the area. In front of it, there was the huge Mykhailivsky Maidan. The court opposite was built only 25 years later. This district was called Kharkivska Sloboda, and it was mostly represented by such buildings as 1- and 2-story houses. That is, it was such a residential area. And here appears this remarkable large-scale object that dominates the surrounding buildings. It was also built in a not very common style for Kharkiv. Although it is eclecticism, it has some neo-Gothic features. The pediments in the central risalit, as well as in the side risalites, are the evidence of delicate work done on the brick. And all this had been standing for more than 150 years, and, in general, had been well preserved. In general, it is probably the record holder for the number of missile hits.
I am a native citizen of Kharkiv, born here. My children and grandchildren grew up here. I have lived in Kharkiv all my life and love this city very much. On March 6, 2022, as many as 6 S-300s hit near us, and the blast wave shattered all the windows in our house. I was sitting in an armchair. I was protected by the wardrobe that was next to me. And my husband was sitting with his back to the window. He was wearing a leather top. And then I used tweezers to remove the glass fragments that flew from the window out of his back. We took out 7 buckets of broken glass after all this happened. And next to us, there is the Institute of Electrification and Agriculture. A wonderful institution where many of my friends studied. It was also damaged. All the windows were broken in it too. Even now you can see in what condition they are. And then, after some time, a missile hit their building. This is the main building. This is a former real men's school, which was the first real school in Kharkiv. After the war, an institute appeared here, and there, further on, they built an assembly hall, and the S-300 missile hit precisely this assembly hall. There is nothing left.
As a result, fragments of the central part of the building collapsed. All the windows were badly damaged. We can see that the authentic wooden frames have been preserved on the 3rd and 2nd floors. The roof was damaged, the exterior walls were damaged, and all engineering systems were disabled. The building has already been standing without observing the temperature and humidity regime for 2 years. There is further damage to all the interior decorations of the walls and ceilings, quite serious one. If we talk about the distinct individual features of this building, it should be noted that decorative cast iron is used here, which is used to decorate these porches. The central entrance. Here we see the columns, also cast iron, and inside there is a luxurious central staircase, which is also cast entirely from cast iron. And there is a huge atrium which connects all 3 floors of the building. Also, the building itself still has authentic interiors. They were slightly changed during the Soviet period, but in general, the decoration of the building remains authentic.
Kharkiv is my native city. I know so little about you, so little that I want to get inside your silly paradise. I see so many stories in your no longer eternal buildings, and despair overwhelms me because I will no longer stay inside them. Oksana Volinska. Russian missiles often destroy ancient buildings in such a way that it is no longer possible to restore them. And it's really tragic. It hurts terribly. I love my city very much. It is very difficult to see all this.
Work to eliminate the consequences of the Russian attacks, unfortunately, are accompanied by the loss of the authentic material of these buildings. We constantly record what is taken out, because it is taken out together with construction waste in an unknown direction. And because of this, the restoration of these objects will then take place from modern material, which will significantly violate the authenticity of the object itself. And it will be impossible to call it a restoration, and it will also be difficult to call the object itself a monument of architecture, because it will, in fact, be a prop, a kind of replica of the object itself. What was laid in the Soviet Union is the devaluation of our history. This strategy continues to work. And what the aggressor is doing now, in fact, is continuing the same strategy laid down in Soviet times, aimed at destroying national identity. And when such objects are destroyed, the history is destroyed in general, as proof of our existence in the past. That is, the narratives they promote, that we are one fraternal nation. These narratives will be much easier to prove when we completely lose our historic environment. And the loss of such objects gradually leads to this goal. Therefore, we must realize that in addition to our hot front, where the guys are protecting us now, there is another front that we must protect and stand for our own history and preserve these evidences that we still have. Destruction occurs in all cities. Both the cultural institutions that are currently working and the buildings in which they are located are being destroyed here. And all these are different fragments of the same picture. That is, the enemy is trying to destroy our identity completely. This connection is constantly being destroyed, and we have to oppose it.
The information base, created by a group of architects and restorers, will help systematically and comprehensively plan the restoration of monuments, as well as defend the interests of Ukraine against Russia in the International Criminal Court for crimes against culture.